Welcome back to the show. It's John Pollock here alongside John Ramdeen and Robin Black. We're going through the UFC 208 card going down in Brooklyn, New York this Saturday night, and we're going to move on over to the light heavyweight division, which is always a odd division that is in a weird state of flux. And Jared Cannonier, he had a very impressive fight against Iwan Cutelaba back in December, and now being thrown to the wolves, in my opinion, against Glover Teixeira, who is coming off a 13-second knockout loss against Anthony Johnson. Certainly that raises some questions, but in a division that is just so thirsty for any kind of prospects to come up, I see Jared Cannonier as maybe one of those guys, but that's going to really be tested on Saturday against Glover Teixeira, who I just feel has so many different options against a Jared Cannonier.
Yeah, and you look at that fight with Anthony Johnson. I mean, it's Anthony Johnson. He leveled the current champion, Daniel Cormier. Johnson has that type of power. I look at Teixeira's experience, the guys that he's faced off in the past. He's been around the game for a long, long time. Black belt in jiu-jitsu, knows how to grapple. His hands are his best weapon, and his forward pressure. But Cannonier, he understands, just like a lot of people, Misha Cirkunov being one of them, the division isn't that deep. You have to come out, if you can get a win over a guy like Glover Teixeira, who has fought for UFC championship in the past, you will be considered one of the top guys at 205 pounds. That's just the state of things.
Look at that right hand, left hook off the fence there. Beautiful stuff. He really does have incredible smooth skill. We think about power when we see guys like him and AJ, but it's smooth skill, man. But, so this guy has no chance, right? You got to figure, but that's what we thought, like a week ago? Because OSP was in the cage with a guy, we've never heard of this guy that he was facing. He's like some Vulcan guy from the planet Uzdemir. I mean, he's come out of nowhere. And he beat the man who went 25 minutes with John Jones. And when you see that happen, and it's happening more frequently now because of how quickly the game is changing and how many variables there are, this can happen at any time, and it could happen with Glover Teixeira in this fight as well.
And it's kind of an indication of just the state of the light heavyweight division, where Glover Teixeira is ready to fight, and we take a look at these rankings. Who else is available here when you're eliminating Ryan Bader? We don't know what the status is of Misha Cirkunov, if he's going to be coming back, and then other guys that are booked, such as Corey Anderson, who's going to be fighting Jimmy Manuwa, and all of a sudden, Jared Cannonier's ready to fight. Well, Glover Teixeira is your option, and maybe the argument is, if you can't contend with the Glover Teixeiras of the division, are you a prospect that we can be grooming? That's going to be interesting to see if Jared Cannonier, this is his second light heavyweight fight. He's really being given a tall task here. And I just look at maybe a year or two from now, we look back and why was Jared Cannonier thrown against Glover Teixeira, who I feel still has a lot of productive fights left in his career.
I agree with you, but one of the things that we've learned, Robin and I have the great luxury of calling a lot of fights from Japan, and we're seeing a lot of fighters that are making their pro debut or fighting in their second or third fight, taking on veterans that have 30 or 40 fights and looking good. The landscape has completely changed, and some fighters that don't have real in-ring or in-cage experience can shock a lot of people because the information out there and the technology that's out there and all the good training partners and all the black belts and all the high-level Thai boxing coaches, they're all over the world. So if you dedicate your time, you can get to the top very, very quickly.
It's true, and it starts with mindset, too. Cannonier believes this is his big fight. This is the fight that's going to put him over the top, and he's going to take this guy out. You got to start there, because you certainly can't walk in there thinking you're going to get killed. But he's coming down from Alaska, really. That's where he cut his teeth, fighting guys that came off the rigs. You know what I mean? But when you see him at the UFC level, he looks very legitimate. We'll find out. Is he in over his head? We'll find out. He doesn't think so.
I think that it's a big discrepancy when you're talking about a fighter that comes into the UFC, is still maintaining a part-time job. And you think at this level that stuff is a thing of the past. It's not for some of these fighters, and that's the difference between a Glover Teixeira. He is waking up. This is his full-time job.
Yeah, I mean, but if this is what you're looking for, if the goal is to be a professional mixed martial arts fighter, be at the highest level, and what you need to do is get a part-time job to facilitate that, Michael McDonald's doing the same thing. This is a guy that faced off for a UFC championship. If he wants to continue to fight, he's not making the money that he needs to. Eventually he knows if I get to the top of the division, if I become a champion, I'm not going to have to worry about finances.
All those 20 hours of the part-time job, 20 hours for years and years, that's a lot of work. You know how you can get rid of that? you knock out Glover Teixeira, and that motivation is there for him.
Well, if Jared Cannonier pulls off a big upset on Saturday and you have a question about the light heavyweight division, where can they send those questions?
Sunday morning, hashtag AskRobinBlack. Send me any question on Twitter @RobinBlackMMA, and I will answer them with my pal Chase Kaiser every Sunday. Ask Robin Black.
Coming up, Robin Black offers up his keys to victory for Jacare Souza versus the Barbarian Tim Boetsch.